So my name is James Winter. I'm a student at USC. It's a school in Los Angeles. I'm doing my master's program, and so this is going to be a teaching experience for all of us. All right. Here we have our discussion of key points. So why did Mark Twain use bad grammar? Have fun with the characters, okay? Wheeler's dialect in the story is a language of what? Whirling in the air like a donut is an example of a simile. Very good. In the original story, Twain emphasizes the quickness of the frog in the sentence, "Well, I've seen him," said Daniel Webster. He had no idea he'd been doing any more than a frog might do. This is what? Run-on sentence, okay? So, with all that being said, what have we taken in today? What have we learned with this? What have you guys gained from this? What was the point of the story? Why would we take this much time on Mark Twain? He started realism, okay? He was the man, as it were, okay? And with that being said, he had the ability to. One of the things that's interesting about the run-on sentence, real quick, on a sidebar, is that if you can envision the sentence going as a run-on sentence, think of the frog jumping and running, pretty much just jumping through. And it's the same kind of idea, okay? He was able to get a story within a story. While he had you entrenched in this idea of a frog, he actually told this story within a story. So he had the narrator, going to Simon Wheeler, and then talking about Jim Smiley. And then when Wheeler was finished, he started in on another Jim Smiley story, and the narrator wanted nothing to do with it. So he had this gift of being able to use bad grammar, run-on sentences, everything you wouldn't do in a normal book, and he was successful. Because the people liked the story. They enjoyed the story. And I think that's what I was getting back to with the song. Why do we have songs and books at all? What's the message being conveyed? Everybody has a message. Everybody has a story, right? Every one of you have a story. Your lives, even at the age of 14, 15, 16, you have a story to be told. Okay? And they're interesting. They're very interesting. I think every teacher here would love to sit down with you and learn about your story, because it would give them a chance to personalize the message to each one of you. And that's something that Mark Twain was able to do for a whole country. Now, with that being said, what is realism? What is that? It's a literary term, but when Robert was talking about when he was talking about you live, you play, you die, what's that? It might seem very ordinary, right? It's not glamorized. It's not Hollywood. You want Hollywood. This is the exact opposite of a Hollywood. Okay? So you have a whole life based on very ordinary settings. You have a situation where a guy went to a bar looking for a guy who knew about Lavinia Smiley, who doesn't exist, but he'll remember Jim Smiley, who does. Story time. And in that era, story time was a big thing. Again, they didn't have the Facebook. They didn't have Facebook. They didn't have Twitter. That wasn't the story of the day. They didn't have sports. They may have had some sports, but they didn't have what they have today in terms of World Cup or whatever, what have you. So they had to find other ways to entertain. Stories were it. That was the way things worked. And there were obviously comical things that happened. Not that everything was ha-ha funny, but it was amusing. It was ironic. Irony is one of the forms of comedy that I really appreciate, because it's so difficult to describe, but it's so easy to see. And you'll learn about irony. It's a fascinating sense of humor. It's one of my favorites. It was one of my grandfather's favorites as well. So, what was the focus? What was the time frame of realism? 19th century, the 1800s, okay? That's right. And I just want to thank you guys again for letting me share this time with you. This has been an awesome experience for me. I hope you learned everything that I wanted to do one last frame shot and go and just look at what we've learned. Mark Twain's writing style is realism. Allusions were to Andrew Jackson, Daniel Webster, and Bessie Ross. Who can remember what each of the people were, or which animals were which?
Webster was the frog, Jackson was the dog, and Bessie was the cat.
Very good, very good. And what is the importance of dialects? What's the deal with the dialects?
To represent a special region or a special
Regionalism, very good. Okay, so you have a bit of regionalism going on. Whirling in the air like a donut, solid as a gob of mud. What are we talking about here? Similes, okay? And expressions, quicker than you can wink. What might that mean? I mean, you can...
It's really, really fast.
It's really, really fast, right? I mean, you can wink pretty quick. Okay? Figurative verbs, flop down, snake a fly. Snake a fly is a tougher one. I would love to see somebody define snake a fly. But what when you visualize flop down, what is that? Fall kind of awkwardly, right? Okay. And personification, scratching the side of his head. You can visualize that again, okay? It's something that you can see yourself doing. And finally, the run-on sentence, and we've already covered that pretty intensively, but that's what we've been doing. I wanted to make sure that we were able to get through everything, and again, thank you very much, and that's in my lesson.